This podcast is sponsored by Sian, and I'm so excited to share their Indie Biz program with you. Running an independent business means making tough choices, and sustainable options aren't always the most affordable. That's why Sian are offering 40% off their sustainably made workwear, including aprons, so you don't have to compromise. Sign up to Indie Biz, and not only will you get the discount, but you could also be featured across Sian's channels, spotlighting your business. Plus, they've got exciting plans for 2025, including Indie Biz markets. Head to the Sian website to apply and join the community. Have you ever spent hours creating the perfect Instagram post and got crickets? Same. Imagine this instead. A fashion brand sets up a What's Your Style personality quiz using Score app. Shoppers get personalised product recommendations, and you get email sign-ups, warm leads, and a few cheeky sales. You can even use Score app for product waitlists, competitions, and so much more. It's the perfect lead generation tool for your fashion brand. So head to scoreapp.com/fashion and get an exclusive 50% off your first month with Score app, or use the code FASHION at the checkout.
Hi everyone, this week I'm chatting to someone whose career path is surprisingly similar to mine. We both studied at DMU, De Montfort Uni, and started out in the fashion industry through the classic buying and design route before essentially going solo and doing our own thing. So welcome Sian. Sian is the founder of Sydney Lane, a striking womenswear brand that kind of blends the bold design with a very refreshingly honest presence on the internet, which I am loving. And if you've seen her TikTok, you will know exactly what I mean. She basically says all the things that every founder is thinking. And I think that honesty has really built a brand that people like trust and believe in. So we're going to get into it and rewind back to a little bit of a brief history of Sian. What did you do before you started Sydney Lane?
So firstly, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. And I actually didn't realise that we'd both gone to DMU.
Neither did I until I started looking at the internet.
What did you study?
I studied fashion retail buying.
Oh, okay, amazing. So I did contour fashion, which is basically...
That's what I wanted to do.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I wonder if we would have been there at the same time.
I know, it's such a niche course as well, because there's only like 2 of them in the UK now, but that was the original. Basically, it's the study of anything that contours the body. So lingerie, swimwear, athleisure, nightwear. And I graduated, God, I was trying to work this out. I think it's like 12 years ago. I can't believe
I'm not going to tell you when I graduated then, because it was longer than that.
Yeah, but it's just flown, hasn't it? I'm like, how am I? I'm turning 34 next month, and I'm just like, this is all a blur. Slow down.
Yeah. So what was your first job out of uni?
So straight out of uni, I moved to London and worked for a supplier. So I was actually quite lucky to be offered a few roles out of uni, because I'd won a competition while I was studying there that was a global competition.
Me too.
Don't, this is too weird.
I know.
What was it?
The competition, it was like through Next. So I won my job to go to Next. Yeah.
Yeah, so I won a competition called the Triumph Inspiration Award, which was like, have you heard of Triumph Lingerie? They were like huge at the time. And they did a global competition where basically I think it was like 34 countries took part, and you had UK heats, and the final was in Shanghai. Ended up winning that. Had a commercial lingerie range made with Triumph. And from that, obviously, you get quite a lot of exposure. So I got offered quite a few different roles. But I actually ended up taking one of the most unglamorous jobs ever. But I just loved my boss, who ended up being my boss, a lady called Tracy. And she was just really believed in me, and the role was really creative. So it was actually for a supplier in London. But we used to do sort of in-house creative ranges that you'd then present to the bigger brands with total creative freedom, which for me as such a creative fresh out of uni was like perfect, because I could just design whatever I wanted. Wasn't thinking about price or anything like that. And it was just, so that was my first role. I was there for 3 years, I think, got promoted to designer, and then I moved to Australia, and that's when things sort of, everything changed for me. It was the best thing I ever did.
What happened?
Okay, so I moved over to a company called Bras and Things over there, which were, well, they are probably their biggest lingerie and nightwear company. They've got stores in New Zealand as well. And went over there, didn't know anyone, but just was so ready for this big change, and was lucky enough to launch a brand new department with them. which was obviously amazing for my age at the time, and total creative
Yeah.
freedom over that. And was there for coming up to 4 years, I think. Had my residency, so I could have got a passport if I'd stayed a year longer.
Mm.
But then a boy came along. Right, he's still upstairs now, so we're still together. It ended up working out fine. But basically, I moved home for a guy,
Yeah.
and I convinced myself it was for a role at the time, but it wasn't. It was definitely for him. Um, Came back and then worked for a well-known fast fashion brand.
Mhm.
I won't say who, but
No,
let's just say it
you can
was.
find it on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Oh God, you can actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the worst time of my life. Like I've
Mm.
still got PTSD from it. I'm not even joking. I lasted
Yeah.
maybe 3 and a bit months, I think.
Yeah, I noticed on LinkedIn that you weren't there for very long.
No, I mean, I was not the right person for the role. I can 100% throw my hands up, look back and say that. But I also, it just wasn't for me. Like it was not creative enough. They told me it was going to be super creative. Because in Australia, just backtracking a bit, the role was officially buyer. So I feel like in the UK you have like set buyer, set design teams, whereas over there it's sort of a mishmash of everything, which I actually loved because you learn so much about not just designing but the money side of things and
Yeah.
range planning and all that stuff. Whereas the role that I came back to in this fast fashion company was just I was just so in over my depth and it was just wild.
Yeah.
So from there I quit with no plan. I just walked one day after a meeting with my boss. I was like, I cannot do this. This is
Really? Like halfway through the day, you just walked out.
yeah, we'd had like an appraisal or something, and it was just I just really disliked my boss.
Yeah.
Um, am I even allowed to say that? Yeah, well, I've
Yeah.
said it. She wasn't very supportive, and I just felt like it was just too much. So I just quit. Had no plan, and
I
then
got,
it was the best.
I feel like I know who it is, but
No. Anyway, it was the best
I'm not
thing
gonna say.
looking back that ever happened to me because if I had not hit up until that point, I'd always been really good at my job and
Mm.
like had that confidence in my abilities as a designer. And I just feel like after that, I just completely hit rock bottom in terms of like everything just kind of fell apart. I had this nice 1 bedroom flat in town, and then I moved into my auntie sofa because I couldn't afford to pay anything. And I was working at the pub delivering prescriptions and pouring pints. Um,
Wow.
I knew I didn't want to move back to London. I don't know if this is even making sense now. I feel like I'm
Yeah,
going.
yeah, it is.
But I knew I didn't want to be in London because I'd come home for this guy and I didn't want this long distance relationship. And I also didn't want to be skint in London again. So I
Yeah.
was like, right, I'm going to try and start my own brand, which at the time was a fitness brand called Cheek. And I was hand embossing these personalized sort of like resistance bands. Um, and you actually bought one, didn't you?
It did. Yeah.
So I feel like I've messed up the story a bit there in terms of like I was delivering these pints, delivering prescriptions, pouring pints, and then I had enough. I couldn't do it anymore. I was like, I need to go back to my parents down south and just, you know, try and find a proper job because I can't stay on my auntie's sofa anymore. I'd been doing it for 3 months,
Yeah.
and then lockdown happened, and again, I feel like that's when everything changed for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to build this personalized resistance band, fitness brand, and organically started putting my work out there again through Sian Studio, which is one of my other businesses. And then
Yeah.
everything just changed.
Yeah. I think that's how I came across you, or we were both in a course together or something. Um, so
I was
I was
following you.
trying to even remember like how I came across you in the first place,
I
whether it
think it
was,
was Imogen from
oh, yes. Yeah. From Sister Brand.
Sister Brand now. What
Yeah.
both
But
Imogen and
Imogen
Harold.
Jersey back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was helping her with um, putting her production, well, having production rather than hand sewing. And
Yeah.
you were mentoring her, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
And then I just became completely obsessed with you because I remember specifically I was so lost after like everything that had gone on, and I just couldn't
Yeah.
understand how people were making stuff happen. And I remember you were going to have one of your first 10K months or something, and I couldn't afford to like you were giving away a call to reach it or something.
Oh
And I
my
was
God, yes, on a live on Instagram.
yeah, from the sidelines, I was just like cheering you on so hard because it was so inspiring to me and just felt so far out of reach. Like I was like,
Yeah.
how are these people doing this? And you were one of the first people to cater to like smaller businesses, I think. Uh,
Yeah.
and it was just so inspiring. So yeah, I've fangirled from you for a long time. And I used to listen to your podcasts.
And here you are,
Here I am as a guest.
like loads more than 10K months.
No, I know, it's crazy how things change so quickly though. So then
Yeah.
Sian Studio, I was like building this agency. It became an agency with team members, and also I have another business called Studio Bloom where we produce lingerie for bigger brands. And I saw my clients' success and I loved helping people, but I always had this niggle that was like, you have to do your own thing.
Yeah.
And then
So that kind of leads me on to a question from Nicola that was submitted that is like, what was the turning point? What was it that essentially made you start Sydney Lane?
I think it was a combination of things. So firstly, seeing my clients' success gave me the confidence to believe that I could do it as well,
Yeah.
which was, I think it's a mindset thing massively when you're going after something like that. And then money. Like I'd done it with Cheek where I didn't have anything. Like I couldn't do it the way I wanted to do it. And I knew that if I was going to go for this and do my own brand, I wanted to bring something out that I was so proud of and was like, I gave everything. So luckily enough, I had the money from my agency saved up to just be like, right, I'm just gonna go for it. And if it all goes to shit, I can just, I can go back and
All pints again.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah, like it was just mainly money because it's expensive to start a brand.
It is. Yeah. Let's jump forward a little bit
Yeah.
and think about what you took away. What were some real red flags that you took from insert fast fashion name brand here, that you knew would really help you when you're doing your brand now?
I think for me, and hopefully this shines through, is just like integrity. So I have strong morals as a human being, and I just feel like my brand is a reflection of that. Like my suppliers now are like literally like family. Like I just can't ever imagine treating anyone like in that way, you know what I mean? And it's I always say to my clients previously through the agency, it's like I think people are quite quick to bash factories and supply chain, and actually you're a team. You need to be working together.
100%.
So things are going to happen. I don't do things well, and things are going to happen that you didn't do well. But how do we learn from it, and how do we constantly improve and work together? So that was one of the main things. But also, even on the flip side, I took away positive things. I think just the resilience from like going into like the anxiety that I had. I just never wanted to feel like that ever again. But it also taught me that they were like working like a glorified, I don't know if I should say market stall almost, where I was so used to a fixed way of doing things, but actually being there made me realize there is something to be learned in being agile and just kind of finding your own way through, if that makes sense.
100%. It's like working so closely with your suppliers. I wrote this ebook ages ago, like years and years and years ago, and that was the first thing that I put in there was be nice to your suppliers and they'll be nice back to you, and like you really do get what you pay for. And I think I was writing it from working at a supplier on the other side, like be nice to people because our buyers were not nice. And it's a really brutal industry, and you can't just kind of be a bit of a keyboard warrior behind your computer saying, get me this sample by this date, and then expect people to kind of drop everything and rush around to do what you want. It just doesn't really work like that.
No, I think luckily from industry, I think about it, I've had the supply side and I've had the brand side. So and now I've got my own brand side. So I kind of see this 360 of like, you like to think people you're working with, everyone's trying the best. So something's out of your control. It's like, why be a dick about it? Just how do we move past this and like find the solution? I'm not bothered about, a blame game. I feel like so many people just focus on that, and it's nothing comes from it.
No, I think I used to take it too far at Next. I remember I actually got told off once because I was like on the phone probably for about half an hour, and there was these two girls in Hong Kong called Donna and Cecilia, and I was just like absolutely obsessed with them, and we would send magazines to each other, and like I was asking her how her like kids violin lessons were last Tuesday, and then they were like, okay, you actually do need to do some work. I'm like, but the nicer I am to them, they're like, yeah, you're taking it a bit far now.
Relationship building, isn't it? And you spend so much time, like I speak to my factory more than I speak to my mates and my mum and dad these days. You know what I mean? So it's so important.
Like really invested.
Yeah, literally.
And so how do you then approach product development if you've got that really tight relationship with your suppliers? Where do you begin?
So in terms of like design, I tend to get inspired by a specific like fabric or trim, and
Okay.
that kind of directs like the mood or the collection. But I am a
Yeah.
bit chaotic, like I'm a true creative in terms of like it's very all over the place. But in terms of product development, do you mean like the fits and things like that, or just everything that goes into it?
Everything. Yeah. Like, what's your process? So, like, if you start with, because people are
Mm.
different, I think that's a question I get sometimes is, do you start with the shape or do you start with the fabric? And it is like totally dependent on the designer. Like,
Yeah,
some people will start one or the other. So, it's interesting to hear that you start mainly with like a fabric or something
yeah,
physical that you can touch and see.
definitely. So that's why I try and go over to China because I produce in China and go to the markets there. And when I'm walking around, I can have a kind of idea of like the vibe that I'm going for. So like I
Mm,
knew going over a few months ago that what I wanted to do for autumn winter as like an overall kind of mood
vibe. Yeah.
vibe. But then when I go there, it's like I'll see a fabric that just changes everything, the entire direction, and then I'll go away, get the fabric. I normally ask to send them to send me like meters that I can play around with because I need it in hand to sort of like I'm surrounded now by so many fabrics and trims. And then it's a case of like pinning on the mannequin, sketching, so many hours of just staring at things, sitting on it, coming back a day later. And then it's very much, I've got a set process now. So it's always CADs, tech packs, which is technical bit with all the measurements.
Yeah.
And then we start the fitting process, which the whole process, I'd say, for me at the moment takes between 6 months to 9 months.
Wow.
And we do a first fit, second fit, size set, pre-production sample, sometimes another round thrown in there, and then
Mm,
sign off and go to production. So
yeah.
quite a
And
lengthy
how do you
process.
decide what goes into the range? Like, is there certain things that you're just like, that's not going to make a cut?
Yeah, definitely. Like
Yeah.
I feel like you just know. I can put something on and be like, that's a bestseller, like doing three
Yeah.
colours. I think that just comes partly from like experience as well.
Yeah.
Um, but
And knowing what fabrics like suit what shapes, I think if you don't have that experience, that's actually really hard to do. Is just imagining what this fabric, like a little swatch on a hanger, is going to look like in a full body garment.
I mean, I still struggle with that, and I've got like a lot of experience in terms of like things can come back so different to what you envision. And it's not just
Mm,
that. So, for example, big lessons that I mean, I'm learning every day, but one of the biggest lessons I've learned with resort and things is we do a lot of prints. So,
yeah.
a fabric can actually perform amazingly in the solid color that I've got that we've sampled in, but then you apply a heat process or printing process to it, and the fit becomes completely different, and the fabric looks different. And so, sometimes we can change fabric like 2 or 3 times. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's just constantly learning ways to think ahead and try to reduce your sampling and save costs ultimately. That's
Yeah. Because that is something that you get in trouble with for your factory as well, isn't it? Like
yeah.
oversampling and then not booking what it is that they want, and it can send.
Especially because they're doing me favors and doing low units because I've built that relationship with them that they're like, Sean, come on now, like it's good enough, it's commercial. And I'm like, no, we need another round. It has to be perfect. But
Yeah. Calm down. You mentioned resort. So do you follow like a traditional buying calendar? And do you have a critical path that you follow to plan your launches throughout the year?
no.
No.
I mean, I have like key dates in mind, obviously, and already lessons learned from last summer. So we actually
Yeah.
turn one in 2 weeks on the 6th of June. And there's things that I've implemented this summer, for example, that I've learned from last summer. So last summer I just did one big launch
Yeah.
and it was quite wide. There were a lot of pieces, and it did perform well over the whole summer. But I just felt like we were missing that newness and that excitement. So what I've done this summer, which is already hopefully is going to work well, we'll see because the next 2 launches are coming, but is splitting it up and having those 3 drops over summer, because I just it's so important to stay fresh and relevant and exciting. And I think people get bored, unfortunately. And
And
it's
you get bored as
yeah.
well. I always liken it to like poker. You're essentially just like laying all your cards on the table, and
Mm.
then you've got no game to play for the rest of the night. You're just like, there it is, that's what I've got, and there's no tension there. There's everyone's kind of lost interest in you as a player.
Yes, like people can feel your excitement. So I get excited every time I get a shoot back or there's like it's showing it for the first time. Whereas if you're trying to stay exciting for like 4 months for a product you released 4 months ago, it's a bit like, oh, what do I say about this now? Like,
Yeah. It's, if you're bored, they're bored. Like, I honestly wish there was some sort of word to describe energy within selling, because there is something there. I just don't know how to. It almost sounds a bit like witchy, and it's not
no, I think
that.
it's infectious. Like people
Yeah.
pick up on that energy. So like if you're excited, the customers are excited, you know?
Yes, yeah, and like if you're bored, they're bored. So you've got to keep yourself interested in the collection and keep that tension. That's like there's a really good book from Seth Godin called This Is Marketing, and that's basically like what he explains in there. I mean, there's loads of weird, like silly fun analogies and things, but tension is the number one thing that you need within your launch. And obviously you're very good with your launches as well, and
Yeah.
seeing it from the outside, you really kind of whip people up into this frenzy of excitement. So another question that came in was from Penelope at Mama Hilo. How do you generate that buzz before a launch?
So I'm still very much learning again. This is going to be coming up to our fourth launch next week. But I think timing's quite important.
Mm-hmm.
So lessons that I've learned personally are that if you show it too early, people get frustrated that they can't buy it, or
Yeah.
also something else comes along for another brand. So it's kind of like finding that perfect timing. Another interesting thing that we've been learning with my ads is that if I release or talk about the new collection like too early, sales dip of the current collection. So
Yeah.
what I've learned as of now, so we'll see if it works, is about a week before to really start seeding it and going for it. I tend
Yeah.
to like give more sneak peeks through our mailing list, or I'll try something on TikTok first and then bring it over to Instagram and then really ramp it up in the days leading up to it. And I'll sort of do a deep dive into each product. Another thing
Mm-hmm.
I think works is like sharing the actual buzz around it. So I share a lot of like DMs and things like that, people saying that they, want to buy it, and I think that makes other people think, oh, I might want this as well. Like I don't want to miss out on this because I order such low units that people are realizing now that if you don't get it on in the first day or week,
You're
like,
not
oh
getting
my
it.
God, Gardenia, you're not getting it for another 6 or 8 weeks. So even though it's annoying to sell out, I also think it helps create that
Mhm.
buzz, which is why
Yeah.
it's important. There's another reason to order lower units and sell out rather than be sitting on loads of stock.
Yeah, definitely. It's such a good tip. I think that's the one of the biggest mistakes I see people make when they come to me is that they just say, I've got all of this stock and I don't know what to do with it, because
Mm.
they haven't really thought about how they're going to market it.
Yeah.
And despite you coming from a product background, you do have a very good idea of how
Mm.
you market your products. And so splitting your focus and your attention 50-50 is, I think, what has served you very well watching from the outside.
I think it's like on reflecting as well, like the ability to sort of story tell. So if you can talk about your product, and what does really well for me is because obviously it comes so naturally to me. I've poured so much into every piece. It's like it's not just a bikini. Here's why it's not. Like every little detail, like I spent months developing this mold, or this is bagged out in a certain way, or look at this
Mm,
adjustable cup. And people don't know unless you tell them. So
yeah.
I think it really, it shines through about being excited to talk about the reason you did certain things.
Yeah, and you're also positioning yourself as an expert as well, to say what other people who are watching that, they think, I don't even know these words that you're saying sometimes, but it's still really, really interesting. And I
Mm.
didn't know that all of this went in behind the scenes. And so what sometimes, people will write their content calendar and they might just write behind the scenes one day. And it's
Mm.
like, what behind the scenes? Like, what are you actually going to be saying? There is that level of detail that I think people gloss over. And you are very good at sharing that and kind of educating people in the product side of things to really kind of, I don't know, I think it really helps combat all of that shit talk that you get on TikTok about pricing, because
Yes.
you're really explaining the level of detail that's gone in behind the scenes to the design of it.
And I think it builds trust, which is people aren't going to buy from you unless they trust that it's a good product, and like B, if something does go wrong, like is the founder or whoever going to sort it out. So
Yeah,
subconsciously, I think before we make purchases, we're building up that trust, and hopefully by sharing the amount that I share,
yeah.
people know that hopefully it's going to be a good product.
Yeah.
Stuff
And you
goes
do
wrong.
share a lot. Like, did you set out to be this honest, or has it kind of developed over the time? Because a lot of people say they want to be honest until shit hits the fan and then they don't want to be honest anymore. But you really are honest.
Yeah, like if I'm having a good day or if I'm having a bad day. Like
Yeah.
on TikTok anyway. I don't know. Like I was thinking about this when you sent the question. I think it's just kind of naturally happened. I'm
Mm,
very much all in or all out. So if I'm going to share it, I'm not going to share half of it. Like you're going to see that all of it. And yeah, it is like I'd much rather build this brand and not be the face of it. Like I don't want to be on social media so much. Like the first hire I will do full time will be a social media person because I don't think it's that good for you to be on your phone that much, and it does affect my creativity. Like I've kind of made myself do it and post every day, but it doesn't mean that I enjoy it. Like,
yeah.
and it is hard to be on your screen that much, on your phone that much, coming up with new things all the time. But I knew that I only had a limited platform, and it was like me building it from scratch. So all I've got is my phone and me talking. So to make this brand work, I felt like I had to go all in and just document it all, really.
Yeah. It is the cheapest, and I say that with like inverted commas, way to launch a brand is to be the face of the business, because it does fast track that trust and the growth between the growth of the relationship between you and your audience. Because the other, you could look at somebody like Jacquemus, and it's like, well, they don't really have a face of the brand that much, and it's like, yeah, but they've also got like millions and millions of pounds worth of investment, and that's why you trust them, is because they've got these incredible campaigns and photographs and the lavender catwalks and all of this that you
Yeah.
see online. But you don't have that money probably, and so what you do have is your face and your voice and your integrity, like you said, and that is going to get you so far.
Yeah.
And despite not being that comfortable with it, I think it's nice for people to hear that you're kind of just doing it anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, some people it comes to them naturally and they love it, but
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like now I'll put up a camera anywhere and I'll just speak to it because I've been doing this like for a year now, multiple videos a day, and you do, it's just like a muscle, like you just train it and you get used to it. But there's still
Mm,
times I sit in my car and I try and film something and I can't articulate what I'm trying to say. I think you just
yeah.
have to push through the uncomfortable because you're the only person stopping you from getting where you want to be in terms of
Mm,
in those moments. Um,
yeah.
but I mean, yeah, I would love to come off. I deleted my personal socials because I just want a break. Um,
Yeah.
but then it's hard. It's like, how do you, if you bring then someone into the brand that does socials and they become such a forward-facing part of it, people then associate them with your brand. And what if they leave and things like that? So there's so much to think about with growing this social
Hmm.
presence online. It's just very
I think
interesting.
what's worked really well with the brands that I've worked with recently is having a social media person, but a lot of what you're feeling is like an emotional toll of the thinking and the doing.
Yeah.
And so even if you hired somebody to do all of the thinking and then they're like, here's a camera, just say this. And you're
Mm.
like, okay, that's
Yeah.
fine. And then they're like, I'll go away and do it, put it all together, edit it, write the caption, blah, blah, blah. Really, the talking bit. So you could still probably be the face, but it's like the emotional labor that you're like outsourcing to do with all of it.
Yeah.
And so in your head, you're probably thinking, oh, I just want someone else to do it. But really, like you say, it is risky putting somebody else that you're
Yes.
employing as the face.
I also think it's like engagement is really important. So I genuinely try and reply and comment to everyone, and that's on both platforms coming from me personally, which is like a lot of time, but is
Mm-hmm.
really important to me. And I think that's how I have built like, a community, such a strong community in such a short space of time is like I genuinely do care about everyone that I interact with. But as you
Yeah.
know, it's almost like how do you do that when your following goes from if it's this hard at 30,000 followers on TikTok or whatever, what if you go into, you know, soaring even higher, 100,000, 200, how do people do it?
Yeah, you're definitely going to have some help at some point.
Oh, definitely.
And when with TikTok, then what have you noticed has performed really well for you? What has made your following grow pretty like relatively quickly?
Yeah. Well, to begin with, I feel like it was like literally just TikTok was just speaking to crickets. Like I was like, I'd never used it before, but some of my views were getting like, 20, 30 views. I was like, how does this work?
Yeah.
And then suddenly I remember driving home from a fit session in Manchester before I launched, and I'd done a post about why I wasn't taking on a project for a big multi-million-dollar company. And it just went off. And I was like, oh, this is why people use TikTok, and just got a few thousand followers straight away. And then from then it was just, I was like, right, okay, I need to be telling more about my story, all the behind the scenes. And I just decided to just share everything. So I was, even before our first photo shoot, before it launched, I was doing posts just solely on opening accessories for the photo shoot. And I don't know why, but at the time pre-launch, every post I did was just going off. Like, it's massively dropped off now, like massively. I don't know if it's since I joined the Creator Fund, but I did massively see a dip. Or maybe my content's just crap at the moment. I don't know. But I'm just trying to
blame the other thing.
yeah, it's definitely the algorithm. It's not me. And just trying to stay consistent through, like, I think people give up when they see posts flop or, not get the engagement that they were getting. But I think you just got to stay really consistent.
Yeah, I'm trying to dip my toe back into the TikTok world again. And I've noticed the same thing. It's talking about your experience working with those big brands, telling your story, being like a little bit vulnerable as well, which can feel uncomfortable at times, but TikTok algorithm loves vulnerability. That is a definite.
What else they love, which is actually kind of giving me the ick with TikTok at the moment, is they love conflict. And it does give you anxiety as a brand owner, because people, I feel like it's like clickbait a bit in terms of bashing other people, bashing small businesses, bashing individuals, and I'm just really not here for it. It's so toxic that, like, it's hard, and it discourages people from sharing. I think, like, when you're behind the screen, you don't see a real person. There's still a person there, no matter how big their business has got, and we all make mistakes. So
yeah, I know, and that is why transparency is more important than sustainability, I think, when it comes to running a brand. And I think we touched on this in episode 1 or 2 of the podcast this season, is you're much better off going down the transparent route, which you have, than the sustainable route, because that can get you into hot water. It was interesting, actually, that one of the comments that I saw on TikTok recently, without going into the drama, is like, but sustainability is so measurable. And it's like,
it's definitely not.
It's definitely not. And that comment had 1,000 likes. And I just put underneath, like, genuine question, what are you measuring that on? Like, I'm genuinely interested in what you and these 1,000 other people think it's being measured on. Because then I went on to my stories and just said, what is everyone's like definition? And I had no pre-context, nothing. And all the answers are like wildly different. I'm like, okay, there's your answer. It is not measurable. It is so individual to it is very, very subjective.
Yeah, and it makes you realize as well, I've had some posts that nothing really controversial, but sometimes people in the comments can have such wildly different opinions that it just proves that you can't please everyone, because you're gonna. I read somewhere, I was on a podcast or something, that you're better to have. I'm gonna mess up this quote, but I can't remember. It's better to have 20% people that, like, feel really strongly about you or something either way, rather than like But like, you literally, the comment section proves that you just can't please everyone, and if you try to, you're never going to. So I think you need to pick a lane and just stay true to yourself.
Sydney lane.
Yeah, pick Sydney lane. I've had it with size ranges and, like, getting into debates with people on social media, and I do a video and then I end up doing another video, and I'm like, Sean, just say it once and explain your reasoning, and then
and that's very emotionally draining as well, kind of that, and trying to please everybody. And I always use the example of Debenhams, that is what happens when you try and please everybody. It's not gonna work. Nobody wants to be Debenhams. And I mean, I was going to ask you, like, do you find it hard to show up in such a vulnerable, kind of raw, honest, real way?
I don't think so, because I think I'm just used to it now, and I just wear my heart on my sleeve. Like, I feel everything very deeply, but then I bounce back like a day later, so it's fine. And I can have, like, things change so quickly in this industry as well. Like, I always tell people, I don't think you really realize, even, when I was a consultant for clients and things, it's like, you really have to have thick skin to be in fashion. Genuinely. Everyone says it, but it's just, you can't even imagine the things that the fires you're putting out every day, and every week is different. And
you're right that there is that resilience with the industry and the things that happen. And I put out a post today saying something like, the fashion industry is wild because one minute you've got £2 in your bank account, the next you've got like £78,000, and then the next minute you've got like 20 quid again. And so that comes with an emotional roller coaster as well, that your emotions kind of roll in line with your cash flow. And kind of circling back to the idea of talking about money, you said earlier that it is very expensive to start a fashion brand. How did you fund those early days, or like where did you decide to allocate your money? Kind of talk to us a little bit about what your decision making looked like at that time.
So I obviously had Sian Studio. I'm lucky that I've got quite a few different revenue streams coming in terms of like I've had the cash there to play with. So I had Sian Studio for maybe like 3 years before I even started developing Sydney Lane and earning good money doing that. So I was able to have a pot there that I was like, right, I don't know how much it's going to cost, but I know I can make more anyway. So I'm just willing to just burn it. Not burn it, burn through it.
Risk it.
Yeah, risk it basically. And so I didn't have like I really, this is something that I really need to get better at, is like finance and budgeting, because I've not had a budget up until, like, I still don't have one. I'm about to start working on one. It's just been like I'll use this to pay for this and then I can make more when I've run out of it. So I know I could have done things so much cheaper. The first collection, for example, like lessons learned from the first photo shoot. I spent far too much on the first shoot, flew the team over there to New York. I got this like big bougie villa that we all stayed in, thinking we can, use it for, justified it by we can take photographs there. When actually that was ridiculous, like what you're doing. And there's times now where I wish I'd had that money, because now I've taken out like a 20 grand loan, for example, and things like that. And it's just, I'm not the best person probably to advise about anything to do with budgets and like that. But yeah, most of it went on stock, to be honest, because stock is the most expensive thing. And then product development can become very expensive. So luckily, like the design, the tech packs, everything, I can do that in-house, which saves a lot of money, upfront money. But sampling is expensive, fits are expensive. So it all just adds up. And now I'm getting to the point where I need to start forecasting, because another thing is like, I feel like with a product-based business versus a service-based business, the margins are like so completely different. And like you say, you can just very quickly get in trouble. With a product-based business versus a service-based business, because I feel like you and a laptop, you can just make things happen. Whereas it's not like this. With stock, there's just so many things. So that is a priority of mine, to try and like work on some form of budgets and forecasting moving forward, because I don't really have anything.
Yeah, it's interesting. And one thing I would say that I took away from what you just said is the rapid growth of your business has probably come from taking a few like scary risks.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And so watching from the outside, again, people say that they want it to grow really, really fast, but the way that comes is through the real, like, raw, honest content that you've put out there, and taking like some big risks that you are just like, I'm going to see what happens. Not everyone has that. And it's not like a good thing or a bad thing if you have it. It's just that some people have it and some people don't. And some people are like, do you know what? I'd rather sleep at night and not worry about it. And then other people are like, I'm prepared to kind of throw this at the wall and see what happens.
It depends what you want as well. So I'm very much all in. I'm going to be 34 next month. I'm like, I would like a family one day. I'm very aware that that is like probably going to be in the next couple of years. So I'm like, if I'm going for this, I'm going for it now. And so maybe that is why I'm taking bigger risks, but they do feel like calculated risks to me. So
because you've got that industry background.
It feels like scary. And I've got like, now I know, because I've learned over the past year, I know what my best sellers are. We've established, good blocks. I know that if the ads are performing and I can put more ad spend behind it and I can buy more stock, that's a no-brainer to me. Anything new, I'll still buy the lowest units possible, even though some people have said to me, why don't you buy more? And I still think I'm still not there yet. I'd rather buy the best sellers rather than put loads behind a new style that's got no history on it.
Yeah, I was having this exact conversation with a client this
Oh,
morning who is in China, being like, how many should I buy? I'm like, well, we know that block does well, so we can buy more of that. This one we've never tried before, so just buy an MOQ. This
yeah.
one, you know, like word for word. It's so weird. Um, it's true though, like if you don't, even at a like top tier level, you know, the River Islands of the world, they still buy like the MOQ of something if they don't know anything about it. Just because you're making millions doesn't mean that you have to buy millions of pounds worth of stock. If you don't know anything about it, don't risk your money on that thing. Like risk it on the thing that you kind of know something about, even if it's the block or the fabric or the shape or
Yeah.
whatever it might be.
And then I think it's just constantly like testing and trying what's working. And
Yeah.
you want to test on like you say, like the lowest stock like items and see. So for example, this dress that I'm about to bring out, Celeste, which is it's a calculated risk, I think, because the price point is so much higher than any of my current products, but it's
Yeah.
based on the short version, which is my bestseller. So I'm like, stuff like that, I can justify nearly doubling the cost price because I think it's going to sell. But even that, you
Mm-hmm.
have to think about every every element. Not easy.
Yeah. And you mentioned on either on TikTok or Instagram, I can't remember where I saw it, that you celebrated a 50K month. So
Yeah.
congrats on that. Uh, the question from Hannah was like, what do you think contributed to that? I know it's not going to be like one thing that
Mm.
somebody could necessarily take away, but like a couple of things that really kind of moved the needle, maybe.
Yeah, so interestingly, first off, that is definitely a vanity metric. It doesn't, I always try and stress that in the captions and things because I don't want people to think, oh my God, that you're killing it. But I still think it is worth it being celebrated. Um,
Yeah, it's a turnover number.
yeah, exactly. And it doesn't take into account returns or things like that. But the things that contributed to it were I had my most successful launch that I'd ever had. So we took 20K just on launch day, which is what I'd normally take in like a month. So that was amazing. Uh,
Yeah.
and sold out of quite a few styles and sizes, which was just incredible. And
Mm.
then I don't know if it was the momentum off the back of that or what, but every day sales hours, our ads were just, it was like the perfect storm. Had the stock, things from last summer were working, the Gardenia launch was working, and it was just consistency every day and that big launch at the beginning that was just
Yeah.
this wild. I didn't even realize. I looked at it, I was like, is this real? That is,
Yeah.
but then ironically, I ended up not taking out the loan the month after that. So it's like, you know, it's interesting how
Yeah.
you have your best month and then you end up taking this big financial gamble so close together.
Mm. It's like I've joined a live with my friend Sophie French last night, and she was talking about the comfort zone and then a discomfort zone. But the where the growth happens is probably it's not like you're comfortable or you're uncomfortable. It's like that middle ground of somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
So it's
exactly.
not like you have to push yourself so far where you actually can't sleep at night and that's how you grow and or you kind of stay really comfortable. It's constantly being on the edge of discomfort is where that growth comes from. And so, you know, you've got that 50K launch. You could have quite happily just gone like, right, I'm going to pull it all back now and just be okay. And it's like you won't. It's like, oh, I'm gonna push it like a little bit more and get a little bit more stock because I want to ride off the back of that momentum.
Yeah, literally the next day at my computer, like sending repeats. And what I've been trying to do is to reduce the big thing for me is reducing lead times because
Mm-hmm.
like 6 to 8 weeks to then get repeat bestsellers in. And I can't feel like I'm constantly chasing my tail, you know, sell out, buy
Yeah,
more, sell out, buy more. So I'm just trying to find ways that we can reduce that. So I'm buying like, you know, the fabric ready in advance, ready to,
yeah.
but all of that adds up because they need the fabric in one big go. So, you know, you've got money, invoices leaving left, right, and center. Um,
Mm,
and I really need to have some kind of system in place to track that because the numbers are getting a bit crazy now.
yes. And kind of along the lines of this risk conversation like theme that we
Mm.
seem to be having is the people who I have noticed recently who are doing very well um are all over their numbers and their kind of cash flow and things. Because say if you got an invoice from a factory that was like 30 grand, you'd be like, oh my God, it's 30 grand. But if you can put it through a spreadsheet and be like, but I'm going to get it back in X and I can see how this is going to work and that doesn't look too bad. And you're like, all right, that's I can do 30 grand. Whereas
Yeah.
like if you just see that number, especially only like a year after starting, it's like, ah,
Yeah. And I need
yeah,
to get better at for example, shoots and stuff because I'm sort of creative. I get carried away and spend money on things that you don't need to. Whereas if
yeah,
I'm sure if I had a number there that was like it all added up, and you spent this on that, I'd be like, sorry, what? Like,
Yeah.
how have you done that? You know, so I need to, that's one of my main focuses moving forward, is just the numbers, unfortunately.
Yeah. One thing I would say from watching though, I do think even though you do spend, like you said, like money on your shoots, they look like you spent money on them. Do you know what I mean? Like you can tell that they look really good, and a huge amount of your performance comes through your ads and your organic content. And so it's not just that one photo shoot, it's you're rinsing that photo shoot to the max, like through organic and paid.
I think that it's that fine line, isn't it, of like content. And I think that's kind of why Sydney Lane has done well as well, in terms of like it's that luxury, but it's relatable. So, you know, I want the imagery and all the product to be mega and like, you know, super luxury, like super inspiring, but then it's still just, you know, for the girls, like just that normal, relatable, everyone's like,
Accessible.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you are doing it, if that helps watching from the outside.
Yeah, it makes me feel better, thank you. But interestingly, on that as well, our best performing ads are not the big production shoots. It's more of the raw, behind the scenes, messy. So
yeah,
interesting.
because you assume it would be the content that's
Yeah, no,
you see. But yeah, it's good to know.
thank
Okay, well, what would you say then is the big dream?
you.
Like blue sky thinking. What are
I've got
you, what's it all
bored.
for? Like, what are you working towards?
I've been asking myself a lot this recently, because I feel like your version of success changes so much, especially as you get older. Like when I was younger, it was like, you know, I want to have this and that, and I think a lot of that comes from ego as well. Like for me now, I've kind of like proven that I can do it. And it's like, how do I make this sustainable and like keep loving what I'm doing? So for me, I just want to be real, and it sounds a bit cheesy, but just really happy, a bit more calm, and really spending time on the creative, and just because that's when I'm happy and happiest.
Yeah.
I think there's times where I felt like I've been dragged in a million directions, but the next few months I'm taking a step back from other things and just really focusing on this, which is scary but exciting. And then on my vision board over there, I've got Selfridges. I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but since a little girl, I've just always grown up going to Manchester Trafford Centre, walking around and just being obsessed with everything in there. So Sydney Lane in a yellow bag would be a dream. And then just keep growing, and eventually, I mean, I want to be able to pay myself soon. That would be just a nice,
That'd be nice.
yeah, lovely. Because at the moment it's an expensive hobby. And some like pop-ups and stores, like and things like that. I'd absolutely love to have an in-person like store. I just think that'd be incredible.
Yeah, because you've got that strong community as well, being able to see them in person would be amazing.
I've got so many ideas for like in-person things. It's just, come on, I need the money. We can do it.
Well, thank you so much for being so honest. I knew that you would be. I knew that you'd be such an amazing guest because you're just so like a real open book. So I'm going to give you some quick fire questions now. Are you ready? Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Oh, morning. I'm up at like 5 a.m. every day. Super
Are
crazy.
you?
Yeah. Past 2 or 3 o'clock, I'm like game over. No one talk to me. Literally.
Instagram or TikTok?
Oh, TikTok.
Yeah. And what would you say is your biggest pinch me moment so far?
Oh, there's too many. I know it's only one. The launch.
No, you can tell us all of them.
So I'll never forget launch day, like the very first time I launched, because I've been a designer for the longest time. So to see something come to life with my labeling, and to have such a successful launch day and people actually buy it after so long of like of my adult life doing this for the people, was like, it makes me a bit emotional even talking about it, because it was just incredible. And then there's just so many, there's too many pinch me moments, like even just days where I get messages from people just saying how amazing they felt in something, or that it's inspired them to go after something they want. Like I just feel like at the moment, even though it's been so hard, I genuinely do feel like I'm walking on cloud nine half the time, because this is something that I've always dreamed of. So it's tough moments, I just try and remember like that, like you literally, this is what you want. Do you know what I mean? The good outweighs the bad so much.
Yeah. Well, thank you. You are such a good example of what somebody can do if they really like put their mind to it And then having that industry background with that creativity it's like it's all coming together. So if you are a fashion founder kind of figuring out how to show up online, and trust your gut, I hope this episode helped. And if you enjoyed the episode, I would love it if you could rate, review, subscribe. It means the world to me. Or leave a comment on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. Hello. And it really helps the podcast reach more people, and even better, maybe even send it to a friend who feels like they need it. But yeah, thank you so much, Sian. Been amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
Fashion founders, let's talk about something your brand can't exist without: words. You already know your designs are incredible and your vision is clear, but something is missing. If you're feeling invisible in the fashion world, struggling to sound consistent across platforms, or feeling fed up not knowing what to say in your marketing, then you need the Visionary, the ultimate brand voice masterclass by Studio C. Led by Studio C founder Charlotte Ferris, this on-demand masterclass harnesses a decade of experience to guide you through all things brand voice so you can shape your signature sound and transform casual followers into loyal customers. What you say and how you say it is infinitely powerful. Mastering your brand voice isn't just about writing better, it's about building a voice that's unmistakably yours, one that speaks authentically and connects you endlessly to your dream customers. I know firsthand how fundamental finding your brand voice is, which is why I worked with Studio C to write the copy for my website back when I first became a fashion brand consultant. So if you're ready to make your fashion brand stand out, head to studioc.uk today to join the Visionary, the ultimate brand voice masterclass, and get ready for your brand to break through the noise.